Dr. Brian Scott with you. Sure glad that you joined us today. Today is Friday, December the 8th. Almost done this year and about to enter into 2024. Interesting. Interesting. This is Insight to the End Times, and I'm very pleased to have you join us today. We have been studying the decay or the deterioration in our morals and our spirituality in our society, primarily here in North America, but I believe it's applicable around the world. These are signs of the end times. We don't know exactly the date, time, month, year when Jesus will be sent back by God the Father to receive the church and rapture us into heaven. But we do know the signs are pointing to it being sooner than later. We're in the last of the last days. And if you go back in our Insights to the End Times earlier podcasts, we have shared with you how the 6 days of creation translates into 6,000 years of living on earth. The 1 day of rest, when God rested, translates in the 1,000-year reign of Jesus Christ on the earth. Well, that 6,000-year period, 4,000 years concluded with the birth of Jesus, and it's been more than 2,000 years since he was born. So the last 2 days on the 6-day week are just about concluded, or maybe we're in slight overdrive. But whatever the case may be, we're getting closer and closer. And today I want to talk about 1 Timothy chapter 4, verse 1, where Paul writes Timothy, the pastor of the church at Ephesus, and warns him that in the last days, some of the believers are going to depart from the faith. They will give heed to, pay attention to, submit to deceiving spirits, seducing spirits, and doctrines of demons. Now, King James and New King James, those two versions pick up seducing and deceiving spirits, and both of them pick up doctrines of demons, or I call it demonic doctrines. People are going to leave giving heed to deception. Jesus warned us in Matthew 24, when he was answering the disciples' question, when will the end time come, etc., etc., he points out deception is going to be a real problem. He refers to it 3 different times in Matthew 24. He refers to it in verse 4, verse 5, verse 11, and verse 24. And he says, be careful that no one deceive you. He talks about false prophets. He talks about false teachers. He talks about false Christians. How can that be? They're deceived. They've been deceived, or they've been seduced into following a false doctrine. How does deception work? Well, one thing, it works all the time. But deception is kind of like bad breath. Everyone else knows you have it, but you don't know you have it. Deception means that you give attention to a statement that is not truthful. You begin to follow that statement, and before long, you've accepted it as the truth. So it now becomes a standard, an absolute. You've accepted it as truth, even though it's not true. You begin to repeat it and share it, and other people accept it as truth. And it's not very long before you have created a doctrine that's nowhere close to the truth, but people are receiving it and accepting it. Now, it wouldn't be deception if it didn't contain some truth. So a lot of times it will contain 20 or 30% truth, which will get your attention, but then it will contain 60, 70, 80% off course, not accurate. And when you start repeating this, it goes from maybe 60, 70, 80% off course to 100% off course. It's a deception. It's dangerous, really dangerous. Paul wrote about it in 2 Corinthians chapter 11, verses 13, 14, and 15. Let me read those verses to you. He says, for such are false apostles, deceitful workers. They transform themselves into apostles of Jesus Christ. Verse 14, you should remember this verse. And no wonder, for Satan himself transforms himself into an angel of light. Therefore, it is no great thing if his ministers also transform themselves into ministers of righteousness, whose ends will be according to their works. Paul's saying deception is such that even Satan is able to deceive people. He can convince people that he's really an angel of light, bringing them a revelation, and his demons can convince people they are ministers of righteousness when they are certainly nowhere close to that. How many people today are following a deceiver, a false minister, a false friend, a false spouse? Folks, this has permeated every area of our life. And not only do we see these false apostles and false prophets as the Bible refers to them, but we're seeing the same false kind of leaders in our business world, our government leadership, our educational leadership, our university leadership, our business leaders. You name that. Any field, and you're going to find people who are working as angels of light when they're nowhere close to that. And I don't say that with any desire to disrespect them or to demean them, but if you're deceived, you're deceived. You don't even know better. Deception starts with the seed. It turns into a thought. The thought turns into a belief. And then it turns into an absolute position of truth when it is nowhere close to the truth. We have so many examples of this. Absolutely everywhere we turn, we have examples of this. I'm a former practicing lawyer. I practiced for roughly 17 years. I was a member of our provincial law society, as all lawyers are. I was well aware of the rights and the rules and the regulations and the procedures and the compliance requirements and so on. When I practiced back quite a few years ago, the society existed to monitor the profession, to keep the profession professional, to keep us on course, make sure that we were competent, that we were complying with all the rules and regulations and so on. So they were ensuring that we upheld the standard of law. Amen. Do you know what's happened in the last 10 years? They're now more interested in whether the legal profession is supporting diversity and equality and inclusiveness. So when the legal profession today is about to hire a new lawyer or hire new staff members or new paralegals or things of this nature, they're not as concerned with competence and ability. Now they're concerned with, have you got a diverse group working for you? Have you practiced equality? Are you looking after inclusion of other groups, whether they be racial settings or indigenous settings or whatever the case may be? In fact, lawyers today have to sign covenants with the society that they are doing so. So what's happened here? Somehow or other, these DIE issues have become mainstays. And what I'm suggesting to you is that we're now minoring on majors and majoring on minors. And the competence of the profession is completely by the boards. In fact, I just read this morning, actually I read a couple mornings ago, but it's this morning that I'm recording, where the medical profession in Canada and in our province is going in the same direction. The competence issue is no longer the main issue. So I'm suggesting to you that this is part of this deception. It starts with a seed, grows into a thought, becomes a belief, and then it's an absolute, whether it's accurate or not. I better finish this up tomorrow. I'll see you then.